The information provided by Taming Lightning is designed to provide helpful information and to educate on the subjects discussed. The information provided is true and complete to the best of our knowledge and is not intended to be used without professional guidance and supervision. All recommendations are made without guarantee on part of Taming Lightning and affiliates. Taming Lightning and affiliates disclaim any liability in connection with the use of this information. Taming Lightning podcast is supported by the Pittsburgh Glas Center, a non-profit public access glass studio and one of the top glass facilities of its kind in the U.S., with a knowledgeable and friendly staff and a safe, fun atmosphere. Our community is made up of artists, collectors, students, or just those fascinated by glass. Depending on your interests and schedule, there's a class for you, be it a 2-hour introductory workshop, 8-week classes, or 5-day summer intensives taught by artists from all over the world. Taming Lightning is affiliated with the Plasma Art Alliance, which formed in 2017 during the exhibition The Art of Plasma at MONA, the Museum of Neon Art. Their mission is to promote the illuminated plasma in glass as a sculptural art medium, foster public awareness for this art form through exhibitions, conferences, and educational outreach, and support the exchange of information related to techniques and technologies essential to the advancement of the field. PAA will serve the growing interest in this evolving art for the mutual benefit of artists, enthusiasts, and patrons. If you're interested or would like to join, you can find them on the web at www.plasmaartalliance.com. And another note for you guys, the Plasma Art Alliance has started a Instagram page. And you can find them at plasma_art_alliance. Additionally, for those who have had questions or issues joining the Plasma Art Alliance, the Plasma Art Alliance website has some issues where it's taking a bit longer for people to get added, and that's mainly due to the load and volunteer aspect of that. Currently, the only active forum for communication is through Facebook, so I do apologize for those that don't have Facebook. You can find us on 2 groups here, one of which is the Plasma Appreciation Society group, which I help moderate, and the Plasma Art Alliance group. Simply find those and join, and then be a part of that conversation for plasma and plasma light art. Welcome back, or welcome to the Taming Lightning podcast. I'm Percy Eccles II. I'm the creator and host of Taming Lightning, as well as the emerging plasma tech at Pittsburgh Glas Center, where I'm researching and developing a space for exploring plasma and neon light. Taming Lightning podcast is a series of conversations to help expand our understanding of plasma and neon light, looking beyond its associations with novelty in sign making, and to explore the potential of noble gases as an artistic medium, with each guest sharing their unique knowledge and experience. The intro is Boost by Joachim Krud. Joachim is a Swedish artist who loves to create chill and happy music, and does so for copyright-free use. Be sure to support his music by giving credit when used, subscribing, and/or by donation via Patreon. You can find him on Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud, and Spotify. Hello, Lightning Tamers. This is episode number 17. Today's podcast will be a bit different. It'll feature some of the participants in the Plasma Parley get-together, hosted by Neon and Art Studio, Glasswork, and Raleigh by Nate Sheaffer and his crew Zach Willis and Danielle James, along with Bruce Suba on the lead for Plasma, and lathe demos by Mike G of Merge Scientific. This took place over the 4th of July weekend, and I could not think of any other way to celebrate than creating our own fireworks and sharing the experience among new and old friends. In order of today's episode, we'll feature Nate Shaeffer, Adam Smo, Justin Parr, Harold Lasswell, Aaron Ristau, David Nickles, and Zach Willis, each introducing themselves and their thoughts on the Glas Inaugural Plasma Parley. Before we get going, a little bit about Glas, which I refer to as Glasswork. Glas represents the aggregate of Nate Shaeffer's experiences as an artist and manufacturer.
It is a place where ongoing material experimentation and instruction come together to form art pieces and aesthetic decor. Glas is a teaching facility and gallery, an art factory and personal studio, filled with eye candy available for inspiration and purchase. Glas is a glimpse into neon's past heyday and a peek into its artistic future, preserving iconic works of advertising while creating new outlets for the medium of illuminated glass tubing. Now, if you think about it, that's a perfect segue into beginning with Nate Sheaffer here. It's pretty amazing that we have a neon studio that has started out in its manufacturing process and then moved towards artistically while also teaching, at the same time exploring a new frontier known as plasma. So up next, we have Nate Sheaffer.
All right, awesome. I got a hold of you here, and a busy man, but I know it's always better to have people in person.
Well, it's been a fun weekend getting to know you and all the other guys at the Plasma Parley at Glas.
Mm-hmm. So, can you just talk a little bit about your background, just briefly?
Sure.
Briefly.
I got into doing neon work while I was in college as part of my major, what was going to be my major in art. Didn't graduate with an art major, but I wound up being drawn into becoming a neon tube bender through the art program at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And wound up through a series of maybe unfortunate or fortunate events, depending on how you look at it. When I graduated, opening up a neon shop right out of college, not really with any experience and definitely not wise enough to know that that was a foolish thing to do. Mm-hmm. But I got lucky. I got some good wholesale work. I didn't do a lot of selling of art in that first year or two, and just stuck with it until eventually had dozens of glass blowers working for me under the company name Neon Impressions.
Excellent.
Who wound up doing a lot of production neon work for the beverage industry worldwide, for Coca-Cola in Europe and for brands like Warsteiner and Duckstein in Germany, and doing work for Universal Electric located in Long Island, doing a lot of just production pieces for them as a job shop. And of course, when the business turned a little south with Asian competition and offshore competition, that market completely dried up, and I decided rather than go back to doing thousands of individual signs for sort of a retail market, I would just give it a rest for a while. And then was a stay-at-home dad for 8 years and got back into it when my kids were old enough to go in school and open up Glas. And mm-hmm. that has been a lot of fun, rewarding in the sense that I get to do a lot of artwork and have had a lot of wonderful patrons and clients that have been repeat customers, as well as some really fun commercial work.
Awesome. So like this weekend we were doing a get-together from people who have never even seen plasma in person. You were just starting in it as well, and we have guests like Bruce Suba and Mike who come in to show technical aspects for Glas, and then Bruce Suba kind of forwarding the information about plasma. What's something that you felt you're really learning from this get-together?
Yeah, so I have done a lot of crackle tubes. I've done smaller plasma vessels through different means, and I had a friend of mine, we designed a large kiln together, and I kept as many of the vacuum systems that I had from my production days, cobbling them together to make a nice plasma setup. And we've pumped a few units, and then we made a bunch of changes to it. So the thing that I got the most from this, being around Aaron Ristau and Bruce Suba, and you and Stephen Cole and others who have a little bit of experience doing the work themselves, the thing that I got most out of this as a general picture is the value of collaboration in this very young field that, while science-based, winds up being subjective in terms of vessels being different in a run. We just opened the kiln this morning on 7 different, very distinctly different glass vessels, different volumes, different shapes, of course. And the value of that collaborative experience, sharing what knowledge one or another person might have, has reinforced my idea, the original idea, to have this this Plasma Parley to share and further what is starting to be a very interesting industry.
Yeah, it's, one could be on their own and have very similar shapes. When you have a lot of different people, you can see how that same fill can give you something different in each piece. It gives you a nice vocabulary of the potential for shapes.
Right, and I think Bruce probably could speak more to this, or Aaron, is that every time you try a new 3 or 4 different shapes that have maybe some tricky glass techniques and very difficult seals and maybe vessel within a vessel, or some of these jacketed doers that are coming out, the experience while filling them is totally organic.
Yes.
It's not, well, let's put in 5 torr of this or that gas. It's let's put some in, add some more, keep it under power, and then try to find that magic sweet spot where we should stop. And some of the pieces I've done in the past, I have very distinctly filled them to a pressure I know was going to work for that very similar shape. Well, with these variegated shapes and the organic nature of it, it's thrilling.
Yes.
Positively thrilling to crack that valve open and add another 10, 20, 30 torr of pressure in there and see what dancing goes on, and then tip a piece off and go to the next one. It really is, it's eye-opening in terms of the possibilities. The scientist in me wants to quantify that a lot more, but I realize until one is doing repeats of the same vessel, where there is that consistency of volume and shape, it's virtually impossible other than to go on some past recipes, if you will,
right,
that have yielded some interesting results, but maybe not entirely predictable.
Right, and that's an awesome way to think about it. Think about it as a recipe, because how many times have you followed a recipe exactly, right? You always kind of nudge it here or there because we have a particular taste or flavor we want to get from it, and that's kind of what we're doing here. Right.
Well, that's interesting, because Aaron Ristau has a bunch of vessels he's done that are very similar in volume and similar somewhat in shape, and he has a really nice recipe book, and we've talked about that, and he's been kind enough to share those with me just to give me a little bit more background as to how he approaches it. And I'm excited about trying some similar shapes, and I have clients who want to buy some series, but really the thrilling part is that difference one to the next. Why is it the same thrill as when I turn on a neon sign for the first time? I've done it maybe 50,000 times, and it never gets old. So to re-experience that with a new medium and to have a lot of like-minded folks enjoying the exact same thing at the same time is it's a super thrill.
Excellent. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. If you guys want to check out more information from Nate's background, we have Mondo Neon that represents all types of stuff neon. You can check out his episode with Nate Shaeffer. Again, thank you for joining me today.
Percy, my pleasure.
So for this segment of Taming Lightning, I have students, participants of the Glas inaugural Plasma Parley, a little plasma get-together at Glas Studio or Glas Work. And so first up I have here is Adam, who's going to talk about his background here real quickly and what he had expectations before he came in and what he actually learned from that experience.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name's Adam. I'm down out of San Antonio, Texas. I am a borosilicate lamp worker. My original attraction to this, I think everyone just likes the visual appeal of neon and plasma. I didn't know much about it, but once I learned that they made electrodes out of borosilicate glass, I kind of had that moment of, well, why aren't a lot of people filling up borosilicate vessels with gas and pushing that medium more? Once I looked into it a little bit more, I realized that when it comes to this type of work, it's not incredibly difficult to understand, and it's relatively simple if you just have the right people teaching, and you get a good basic foundation and understanding of it. So once I kind of learned that it's not too difficult to get into, I kind of just searched around on how to get into it, which is still a little tricky these days.
Yeah.
Even with access to information and technology, it's still pretty vague out there.
Yeah, the information has not been collected. There's a lot of different people with ideas, and like just a couple weeks ago, I had Ed Kirshner teach at Pittsburgh Glass Center. He never writes his stuff down, so it's the job of people who learn from him and work with him to put that in. And he's not interested in writing, so I'm interested in taking those notes and doing what I can when I can understand to present those.
Yeah, I think the best I could find was, there's a few random shops around the country that I think kind of advertise some classes, and I think I found like an online class, and then
was it through Aaron Silver's?
It might be. It's like the class was broken up into sections online, and you can order different. I think the whole package was like $500 or $600 maybe. Which, it's a hands-on craft. I mean, you got to be able to ask questions and get a response from the teacher. So an online course didn't seem the best route. So basically, once I saw that this class was being advertised with the people that were attending or were to be teaching, I figured, it's going to be in my best interest to do what I can to get out there and learn from these guys, since they're been doing it, 30, 40 years each.
Yeah. And
it's rare when you get this quality of talent together and that's willing to divulge as much information, as many questions as you can ask.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a rare thing.
Yeah.
And so, that's why I made it a big point to get out here, and as well as to make to put a face with the names, and get to know them. So if I do dive deeply into this craft, then I can come to them with questions.
Dive deeply, you're drowning in it.
Yeah, right.
You're drowning in it. You're not coming up for air.
No.
Vacuum.
So once I came here, I was just basically expecting to get a good foundation and the basics of what I need to get going and to start practicing and getting your understanding. And I figured, if I do keep up with it and start.
What's one thing that you learned that you can take back to your practice?
Well, essentially everything. With my everything. I came here as a blank slate as far as vacuum pumping it and filling, and I didn't know anything. So, I came in here as a blank slate.
Yeah, you learned about leaks too. Or leaks are pretty imperceivable to the eye. Yeah,
I learned about microscopic leaks. That was a really cool concept to learn, and I'm learning how to work with different pressures. Basically, just how to fill a vessel, and a lot of it is the power in too.
Oh yeah.
I feel like understanding the process, that's less than half. I feel like you have to have a great awareness of power and electricity.
Yeah, and even if you don't have, say, a person to approach, I don't know how far you are from Arlington. There's a Don Beck down that way.
Yeah, about 5-6 hours away.
Well, that's a distance, but still,
big state.
So wherever, even if you just send it to Bruce Suba, one thing that I can suggest that Steve had told me was to buy a regular old refrigerator pump. You can find that for $50.
Oh yeah.
Use that as your leak test system. That and a Tesla coil spark plug. You can get that for $99. Not an amazing one, and use that, because then you'll know if it has a leak in it, and you can send it proof. To the person that can fill it for you. And using technology, you can Skype with them.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm very lucky that there's a gentleman back in San Antonio he's been doing neon for 30 years or so, and he's one of those slightly older, jaded fellas that doesn't really bring people in. But once he saw that Justin and I were taking it seriously and getting into it, he invited us out and said, just start coming to hang out. And he said, if we ever need to pump and fill anything, that we can just come over there and do that. So essentially, I can go home now and start creating work, which is nice, as I slowly kind of put together my own manifold.
Oh yeah.
One great thing I learned is just the versatility of a manifold. They're not specific. There's nothing exact. There's just kind of a couple of generic key things you kind of have to you have to do. But that was really cool to learn, because from the outside looking in, you're like, man, this is going to cost me $6, $7, $8 to get into and build a neon plant. But then you learn, if you're already a borosilicate glass blower and, you get the right information of parts from distributors and you have an understanding of how a manifold works, you can be pumping and filling for $2,000, $2,500.
Yeah, you cut that right in half or so.
Yeah, so that was a really big takeaway and eye opener. The fact that it doesn't really actually cost as much to get into it, which is great. I think the biggest thing is I'm more happy with the people that I met and the connections I made. It's a small community, and just meeting other people that are on the same level, trying to push something, especially like this craft, which I didn't learn, or I just learned as far as plasma goes, it's relatively archaic. And no one's really pushed it too much. Like I learned, once you get up to a certain size, power supplies are pretty much on you to come up with. So I think it's great that I get to meet people that are just as interested and looking to push things, and to be a part of that community, and to have others that I know I can reach out to get answers, or if I discover something, I got nothing. I'm always willing to share something I figure out. So that was really great coming here, is just to meet people and have that community, because there ain't many of us.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So up next, we have another one of our participants at the Plasma Parley, Justin Parr. He'll tell us a little bit about his background as well, what his expectations were coming into the class, and what he learned.
All right. Hey, Percy. Good to see you here.
Yeah, nice meeting you.
Yeah, we've had a lot of fun the last few days.
Oh, yeah.
So I kind of come into this from a little different background, I think, maybe, than some of these guys. But I started out in San Antonio, Texas as a commercial photographer years ago, and sort of never expected to become a glass blower. But 15 years ago now, sort of through the art community, I wanted to bring glass into my practice and into my work. And so I've always used a lot of different mediums in what I'm doing. So I ended up I had a close friend who was lamp working, and so I started lamp working with him, and 15 years later, I'm still hooked. So, and neon is something I've always been interested in. So this is, and plasma. So I'm, just totally saw the class pop up. I had been following Nate and Bruce for a while, and and my studio mate, Adam, as well. And so we both were quite excited. And so we have to go to this class. We're going to this class.
When was the first time that you kind of got into the notification that, there's plasma?
I remember being a kid sitting in Target and playing with those balls that you could, but I didn't know what to call that. Right. For years, I thought about that. And it wasn't until maybe the last 3-4 years that I was able to put a name to that and realize that was kind of the same thing, and go, oh, wow. Oh, okay. This is kind of part of neon. This is interesting. And so, I'm just thrilled to be around people who know anything about it at all.
And so in these last 3 days, what is one thing or a couple things you've learned that's very significant for you?
Gosh, I think seeing the issues that Nate had with his manifold, and seeing him break it down and troubleshoot it was actually really valuable for me, because it kind of gave me a much more of a thorough understanding, just looking at it outright from a beginner standpoint. I'd seen more than a few manifolds, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And after kind of watching him go through everything real meticulously, I feel like I learned a ton. And I know he was frustrated with it at the time, but the whole thing was a learning experience for us.
Oh, yeah. It takes a lot of patience to hold when you have that type of stuff happening when it does.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you believe you could take back to your practice?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I'm trying. My head's kind of spinning. I'm kind of going, what do I want to do here? Yes, there is, but I don't know what to pull out and tell you out of it yet.
That's excellent. That means you have a lot of stuff to go home with.
Yeah.
And then now you can just do whatever. But now you understand what you need to make a piece, so that you can either work with someone that has something that's available in your area, or, hey, Suba, and eventually Nate will have those type of options available.
Yeah.
So you can send it to them knowing that it works.
Making the connections and just finding Bruce was so informative, and making all those connections. This was such an invaluable experience. I'm just thrilled to have been here.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Welcome, Harold. Thank you for joining me here shortly here.
Certainly.
It was kind of awesome. It was kind of on the fly to get people on here, but what's your background coming into this get together?
So I started blowing glass in 2006 in high school, and then I worked my way in a shop for like 3 years, and then now I just blow glass in my garage. And coming into like the class, I have no experience in plasma, and it was just a whole new experience, creating objects that I can fill with gases and see all these cool colors and stuff. Like, I've never done anything like that. And so now I've learned quite a bit about how to process and create vacuums and fill gases.
I mean, it's a lot of information, but like, is there anything that you have learned even recently that you know you can go back to your studio and put into practice? Because that's the most important part about the get together.
Well, building the vessels, I have a better idea of what to do now to make a plasma lamp. Before I didn't realize they couldn't be very thick to get better actions.
Yeah, that thickness can affect how well how well that feel will actually go through the piece. Yeah,
and it's a whole new experience because working thinners is not usually a thing I do. Everybody wants the thickest possible.
Right.
And now with these thin glasses, it's easier for me because I don't have to put as much heat into it and work as hard. But now it's going to be like a whole new thing for me to make these vessels and have them filled by Bruce, and creating a whole new experience for me. This class has just been a bunch of great people of learning and knowledge. Like creating all these new things. Like I have so many more ideas right now.
Yeah, you have this network, and then now you're talking, and you switch, trading information. Now you know who you can talk to now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And basically everybody in the class is quite knowledgeable, which is nice.
Yeah, that's amazing. I learned so much just watching you guys work around in the class.
It gives you a better perspective on what you can do in a field where it seems so limited. It's not just working glass to make functional objects. Now it's making glass to make art. Like things that you can look at and stare at for hours and be mesmerized.
Yeah, you're looking at the other layer, which is besides the exterior form, you're looking at the interior volume.
Because usually, like the hollow forms, you're just like, oh, you would fill it with water or beer or something, and now it's like, I'm going to fill it with gas, and that gas is going to be excited and do stuff, and it's just amazing to me.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for coming on here and giving your input.
Anytime.
If you need anything else, just reach out, man. And so another one of our guests here on the podcast, just a little, get together here at Raleigh for a glass studio with Nate Sheaffer and Bruce Suba is Aaron Ristau. And he's going to also talk about some of his experience prior to coming in and things that he learned or the people he met here at this get together.
Yeah, I had known for a while and had, talked to many of these people for years. So when I saw that they were going to do something and group up and talk about it, I was super excited to come, just from the sense of having, read it for a long time and gotten going with what I'm doing and seen a lot of things work, and knowing from the beginning how complicated it is, coming here and hanging out and having the community with the people that you've gotten to know, online, but can now meet in person is really important.
Yeah.
Because it is still a small community. So to come and, see them and hear it from them on their process. These are people that I've gotten to know that I know what they're doing, and I've gone out and, gotten busy and made some stuff right and made some stuff wrong and seen a lot of things and need to verify my process. There's bound to be something that I'm doing that, is definitely going to be different, may or may not be wrong, but why would you not come listen from the voice of experience?
Yeah.
I've gotten out there and I've had a lot of fun with what I'm doing and am not having any issues. I'm mildly surprised at that. I feel like everything that I thought would be super tricky is actually doable, and everything that so it's like when everything's going well and you have a complicated process, you still look for other ways of verifying what you're doing.
Right.
And Nate and Bruce are just they're great guys. It was almost like, why would you not come shake hands with them if there's an open opportunity where they're going to step away from their lives and everything that they're busy with, and talk about what we're all nerding out about. But yeah, so my expectations were definitely to come and just continue to foster community. I've been a part of that since the beginning, and trying to just connect people and say, this is growing. Mm-hmm. I was that weirdo early on who was one of a few, and now it continues to grow. It just grows and grows and grows, and that's really neat. Those of us who, it's almost like when you really get into it and you go full moth and you're doing plasma now, you want to do more of it than anyone reasonably could or should. You're like, I wish I could just do this all day, every day. So to, around community now, 10 years ago, somebody would do a plasma piece every 3 or 4 months. And now we see something weekly, especially if you're, watching the neon sign artisan community, as well as the plasma community. There's so much. It literally is exploding. And that is like this super exciting time to find yourself in community. It used to be just a few of us. Now it's this growing medium. And it has resurged before. We've all talked about that. The neon has come and gone over all these years. And now neon has risen again and morphed with the whole plasma ways of kind of taking it to another level and dimension.
Any strong takeaways from the get-together?
Excitement that some of the basic stuff behind my process is what I've been practicing, and takeaways were that the processes I'm doing seem to be what everyone else is doing. That's
excellent.
Good. That's always good.
It's a convergence of information.
Right. It was like there's got to be something that I'm just basically leaving out or have overlooked. There's got to be something. I think this is just working too well. This is some.
You simplified it. That's the most important part, because it can be very complex and be complicated. And the less you can make that on one end, the more you can focus on areas that need more of the attention.
Right. And there's a lot possible. So, going forward, to know that, things are working right. That's encouraging going forward.
Yeah. I'm glad to have you on here, man. Glad to meet you in person.
Absolutely.
So we have here as our last student that is available from this class or get together, or participant, Dave. What's your last name again?
Nickles.
Dave Nickles. So he'll tell us a little bit about his background, his expectations, and what he learned.
Yeah, I've been blowing glass for a little over 4 years. Pretty much I started out as someone who'd had interest in glass since growing up near a hot shop. As a kid, I'd kind of get to go and watch them make all sorts of vessels, and I always found it really fascinating. I kind of forgot about glass as a thing until I was in college, and then fell into glass pipes and bongs and things of that nature, and really appreciated a lot of those approaches to art. The fact that functional art was a thing, and that you could have something that just sort of hung out on your coffee table and had all, this form and function really blew me away. And even despite getting into glass around that, I didn't actually stop and think about it as something I could do for another decade after that, almost, not quite. And sort of on a whim, found somebody near me who was offering a weekend class doing pendants and ornaments and things like that. Signed up for it. After the first day, I was totally hooked. After the second day, I was begging the guy for an apprenticeship. And when it became apparent that I couldn't get enough time in his shop, I pretty much started doing everything I could think of to figure out how to get my own shop rolling. And so I started ordering components, raw materials, torches at the same time that I was working with my landlords to try to get a studio built, a little shed built in the backyard. And that ended up falling through. Around the same time, I found some warehouse space, and then this Heathway lathe pretty much fell into my lap. I realized I'd met Mike Janan once through the guy I'd initially learned from, and when the lathe popped up, I reached out to him and said, hey, if I grab this thing, will you show me how to use it? Mm-hmm. And I had no clue what the hell I was getting myself into. I didn't realize it was going to be anywhere near as steep of a learning curve as it was, despite sort of mucking around on the bench for a while.
Yeah.
And luckily, Mike showed me how to set it up, showed me some basic side seals, and then I just spent weeks doing straight seals and side seals and just practicing nonstop technique, just the basics. And at the point where I could finally do a little something with the basics, I'd ask for him to show me another seal, figure out ways to incorporate that. I wasn't making anything functional. I wasn't making anything I could sell. Luckily, I was working remotely, so I could kind of work from the shop. But I was so obsessed with glass that even days of making absolutely nothing of any sort of value, I really enjoyed the process and could see where it would take me if I stuck with it.
So is glass a profession for you?
At this point, yes.
And do you do scientific work, or are you just kind of doing jobs here and there, or are you doing what is it that?
So I tend towards production rigs as far as my bread and butter. I will do scientific work. I have done scientific work. It's not super common as a one-man shop that's sort of piecing things together. I'm actually I'm in the process of filling out immigration paperwork and applications to take over a scientific shop in New Zealand.
Oh, awesome.
As their head glass blower. So I'm super excited for that.
So what brought you into this class then? What was was it Mike? Did you say, hey man, there's like this studio over here that's doing some plasma stuff, you want to come by and check that out?
Well, plasma, the guy I was initially learning from, Jonathan Davis, had been talking about plasma early on. He actually knew Bruce Suba and had pieces that he was getting pumped, had some pieces he'd gotten pumped, and he had all these plans to get into plasma, which when he described it to me, I thought sounded incredible. I mean, it blew my mind that was possible. I started looking at some of the artists on Instagram, things like that. And so it's always sort of percolated around in the back of my head as something I wanted to do. So when I saw this class pop up, when Nate advertised it on Instagram, and I saw Bruce was going to be here and Mike was going to be doing some of the lathe demo, I immediately reached out to him and said I was interested, and the opportunity. I mean, I'd collected books that I could find on neon and plasma here and there, or I'd scoured the internet for whatever little bits and pieces I could find. But it left me realizing how much I didn't know, and there was no clear sort of, this is plasma and this is what you do, and this is like, here are the basics. It was only recently that I understood that you needed a sort of a solid foundation in neon for the principles, that then plasma sort of sits on top of that, which it wasn't until I sat down and actually read through some of the books that I'd picked up that became apparent. And so realizing that, and then seeing the opportunity to learn from Bruce and just sort of get to soak up knowledge from the folks that were coming, my expectations were, I would say, fairly low, not in a bad way, just in the sense that I was open to sort of any sort of foothold that I thought people might be able to provide. That would have been huge. And I got numerous footholds and handholds and walkthroughs and rundowns, and I mean, my head is spinning with all the information that's come out of this, and it's amazing. It's given me so many places to deepen the knowledge.
What is one of the bigger takeaways that you had from this experience?
I think the biggest takeaway for me, as somebody who's always been a real strong advocate of DIY, is the combination of how much of this stuff you can do yourself, especially working boro, building the manifold, assembling the different components of the system, but then needing that level of expertise and familiarity with your system so that when it breaks down, you're the person who you're relying on to take care of it. I compress and concentrate my own oxygen in my shop, and I opted to go for a DIY system there rather than turnkey because I wanted to understand if something went wrong with it, how do I troubleshoot that?
Yeah.
And with the issues that we had with the system and getting to watch Nate and Bruce run through every single fitting and every single component and sort of run through the checklist of these are the problems we're experiencing. This is why we believe we don't have vacuum. Let's troubleshoot that and see where we're at. And then seeing what the next checklist was and the next until they finally found the problem in the bellows. That was, it would have been nice to have more time with the manifold up and running, but in a lot of ways that was kind of invaluable. And there was so much discussion to be had with everyone else who was here that there was so much information coming out even while we were troubleshooting the system that I kind of almost appreciate that it happened. Like, I'm not sure I would have learned as much if we were just cycling round and round and round of plasma vessels rather than getting to have all that discussion and assessment.
All right. Thank you, man.
Thank you. This has been great.
Yeah. So our last person here is Zach Willis, who is working here at Glas, and he'll give us a brief background and talk about what he learned and experienced.
Yeah, so thanks obviously for having me on this first podcast.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. My glass experience, I was a scientific glass blower for 5 years after being a self-taught pipe maker for 2 years, and then pretty much just went out on my own and happened to end up in Glas with a very nice setup and surrounded by very nice people that are now pushing me to further that fun, try new things. And yeah, I don't know about expectation of coming into the class. I was kind of I didn't have any expectations because I was just wide open. I didn't know what to expect. I had seen online what people could do, but I haven't actually I hadn't seen it in person. I haven't touched it. I haven't played with them. I haven't played with the electricity parts of any of it. So I was coming in kind of just open-minded, let me soak it all in as much as I can.
So very fresh,
yeah.
But you knew that there was a project you're working with Nate on for this,
right? And
that this was going to help kind of get you guys set up and also kind of
it was
connect, create that community.
Yeah, this was a class that taught everybody here kind of what we needed to be doing, and that wasn't just it's not just the people that came from out of town. That Nate was learning, I was learning, Bruce was learning. It's just kind of, I don't know. It's great to have a group of those people all in one room. So my only expectations was to just be able to be around those people as long as possible and soak up as much information.
And now you have this networking to reach out to and trade information with.
A lot of great new friends.
And then you put together the seals and repaired that manifold, so you get to exercise that understanding. Oh, this goes on that, and that goes on there.
I think the greatest part about that was I would have stepped back, but Bruce was just get in there, do it. He doesn't give you a chance. He's just get on with it, go for it. Stop messing around. We're all sitting here waiting for you.
Yep.
And it's just, I don't know. It's good to have encouraging people when you mess up, which I did a couple of times, but it's as easy as just snapping it off and trying again and keeping calm and not it's what I learned was just it's good to have people around you that support you and are pushing you to do that stuff. And glass skill wise, I didn't learn too much new things, but I hadn't ever had my head inside of an oven while I'm sealing up tubes to a manifold and stuff. That's not what you're used to. You're not used to having flames in different spots and that kind of stuff. So it's good to get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a very good experience to be pushed and applauded and okayed if I didn't do well. So
yeah. Thank you.
Kind of nice. Yeah.
The outro is The Process by Lakey Inspired. Jordan, aka Lakey, is a Los Angeles-based artist with the goal of inspiring others to create by sharing positive music around the world. Thus, he works hard to produce music every week for copyright-free use. Be sure to support his music by giving credit when used, subscribing, and/or by donation via Patreon. You can find him on Instagram, YouTube, SoundCloud, and Spotify. Thank you for listening to the Taming Lightning podcast. I'd like to thank Glas and the participants for being such great hosts and giving with their time and feedback. I've left out some other participants, such as Bruce Suba and Steve Cole, as I'd like to get back to them for their own standalone episode, and would love to revisit Nate after he had some time working and playing with Plasma. Also, I'd like to thank the Pittsburgh Glas Center for supporting me as a place of research and inspiration, as well as encouraging me to pursue this project and help bring in these artists and instructors to help build and spread their knowledge. And the Plasma Art Alliance, where I have an access to a well of knowledge and connects me to some amazing people. If you'd like to support Taming Lightning, subscribe to the newsletter on www.taminglightning.net or follow on Instagram @taminglightning. Other options for support are donation through Ko-fi, spelled ko-fi.com/taminglightning, where you can donate for the price of a $3 cup of coffee. Links will be provided in the show notes, and feel free to share, comment, and subscribe. See you next time.